And welcome back to the Delaware Boys Dynasty Football Podcast. Ryan, say what's up to the people.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Yards Per Show. Well, Delaware Dynasty Boys Show, brought to you by Yards Per, however you want to say it. It's been a while. We're happy to be back. We're continuing our series for high-end value on guys that have fallen a little bit too far. We're going to continue tonight. We're going to cover hidden gems at the wide receiver position. Basically, guys, we're looking at that have fallen a little bit too far down the dynasty rankings that have no business being there, and we think can outplay where they're getting valued at right now.
100%. Sorry, I was just letting everyone know that we are alive, and here we go. So, yeah, like Ryan said, there's some gems here at the wide receiver position. There's so many gems. We covered a lot of gems on the other side of our podcast over at Dynasty Football Factory. So now we wanted to mention some more names as we dive deeper into the tapes here and we look at the names that just stand out as perennial buys. Ryan, do you want to start off tonight or do you want me to start off tonight?
I'll go first tonight. So I'll set the guys 30 and below, and I say that first guy's coming in at wide receiver 30. I'm going to start the night off with Jaden Reed, who I think a lot of people are kind of avoiding this Packers receiving room, waiting to see who's going to be the guy. I don't know about you, Steve, or anybody else that's watching, but I'm huge into the analytics sides of things. Like, I want to see great numbers from that. And he's the one that shines brightest out of Dobbs, Wicks, Reed. I don't know if I'm missing some. Christian Watson. He profiles as better analytics than all four of them, or the other three, excuse me. I won't run facts at you, or I won't run down the numbers, but I will say he's absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. He does not waste opportunities whatsoever. Excuse me. Jesus. But yeah, he crushes when he gets the ball in his hands. He was 5th in fantasy points per target, not per catch, per target on 94 targets. And you can't say that's fluky. 94 is a significant amount of targets in this league. He finished with 2.31 fantasy points per target for all you fantasy people out there. That's huge. I think this year he could be looking at an expanded role, given year two's most of the time when receivers break out. He had a great rookie season with 64 catches, 793 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Great numbers you're going to see. And then the other side, he also rushed the ball 11 times for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the part of the game, especially for Jaden Reed, that I kind of look to expand on in this Packers offense with Matt LaFleur, is that rushing game. And I think he could end up in a Debo role. All these people looking for the next Debo and Malachi Corley or whoever else it may be, I think he's already in the league. I think Jaden Reed has the opportunity to be that guy for the Packers. And even if he ends up not being the one in this offense, he could still catch up on the other side with the rushes. Because they used him great in that offense. I mean, more than, about 10 yards per carry? That's great for a receiver.
Yeah. So Jaden Reed is one of those players that I got to watch very, very closely, especially when he was in the Big Ten in Michigan State. Always been a dynamic playmaker. Always been able to create separation, always been able to beat you in multitude of ways on the football field. Joins a very young offense here. A lot of guys weren't branded as the wide receiver one. There was no true wide receiver one on the team in 2023. I think Jaden Reed is that guy in 2024.
Yeah.
I think Jaden Reed is the wide receiver to own in the Packers wide receiver room. Everybody talks about Christian Watson, his explosive plays. Unfortunately, we haven't seen Christian Watson be able to put it together for 17 games. Outside of his rookie year, there was a 5-game stretch where Christian Watson was elite. Outside of that, not much.
Yeah,
I will say I do like Diontae Wicks. I do like Romeo Dobbs in sparing situations. But I think Jaden Reed's a guy to own. And for the reason you mentioned, Jaden Reed is electric.
Yeah, he's a dog. And I know I said I wasn't going to spit numbers, but I got to get these out because they jumped off the page for me. 15th in target separation with 2 yards of separation. Solid. Go down the line. 10th in QBR when targeted at almost 118. I mean, dude's got hands. He can get the job done. I'm not going to spit out any more numbers because they're boring. But, man, Jordan Reed at wide receiver 30, I think he can definitely outplay that. He was at wide receiver 25 after his rookie season, and I think it's up from here.
So how far are you pushing up Jayden Reed? Like if you have him at wide receiver 30 via keep trade cut, how much earlier down the line are you willing to draft him?
Let me go look at some rankings here. Pull them up as fast as I possibly can. Right now he's behind some rookies. Where's he above him? Oh my God, where's he at? Oh yeah, he's behind Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey. I would easily jump those three with Jayden Reed for sure. I mean, I know, sure, one of those guys could break out. If any of them, I would think maybe Lad and Worthy probably had the best shot, but I still think I'd rather have rather have Jayden Reed than those three guys because I've already seen him succeed in the league. It would be a little bit tougher to push him past Pickens and Jackson Smith and Jigba, but there's a world where he can get 1,100 receiving yards easily in this offense with Jordan Love. And we could be talking about him being up there with guys like Tank Dell, Zay Flowers in like the high 20s.
So is there a world where Jayden Reed is better than Jackson Smith and Jigba? I know you're a JSN guy.
I'm a big JSN guy, and I almost had him as a value here because he was at, I think, 29 last I checked, but he's jumped up to 25 now, so getting a little bit dodgy there. There's a world. I think that he could be, but with JSN, I don't want to get on it too much, but he's got a passing coordinator there that's going to get the job done. He's going to pass the ball more, so I don't think we've seen the best out of both of them yet, but as of right now, it could be a toss-up for me.
Yeah. So you ready to get into my first buy?
Let's run it, baby. Who you got first?
Well, I'm gonna bring out the name, and this is a name that I believe we will be talking about as a top 15 dynasty wide receiver or better from here on out. That being Mr. George Pickens.
George Pickens.
So, George Pickens, first year, 13% target share. Seeing the second year jump, what we want to see, 21.5% target share. But the number that I want to point out to you is George Pickens demanded 28% target share in the games without Diontae Johnson. This includes the playoffs. He had 4-game stretch without Diontae Johnson plus the playoff. So, with that being said, in those 4 games, what did you get? You got 37 catches for 397 yards and 5 touchdowns in 4 games. We're pushing almost 100 yards a game. We're pushing a high target share, high volume. I think a safe floor, high ceiling here for George Pickens. At the same time, you bring numbers up. You talk about over the 2 fantasy points per target. George Pickens just missed the 2 mark, which is an elite level mark for most wide receivers, what you're looking at. He comes in at 1.97. I play that more towards the offensive system that he played in last year and the QB play. It comes in at 1.97, which was notably better than DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown. Those names stand out to me. Right. When you think of George Pickens, me and you talk about it all the time. This kid could have the best catch radius in the NFL today. I don't know who else you want to put in that category. Yeah. George Pickens has elite body control. George Pickens has an elite catch radius. George Pickens has probably the cleanest hands in the NFL. And I'll say this. Remember how we transitioned in year 1 from the ACL tear? Year 2, I saw a lot more explosiveness in and out of his routes, in and out of his breaks, the ability to separate. It was never his strong suit, but I saw improvement in that area, which is what I wanted to see. And just things like that. I was very excited to see the growth that I saw with George Pickens from year 1 to year 2. A lot of people didn't know how they felt about him, and I knew how I did. I loved the kid. Yeah. So let's insert Russell Wilson. Let's insert the offensive line upgrades. Let's insert Arthur Smith as an OC who did produce multiple QB1 seasons with Ryan Tannehill. One wide receiver 1 season with A.J. Brown, but that was barring injury. Could have had 3 straight years at wide receiver 1, come in at wide receiver 24, wide receiver 15. Missed games in both those years. So, Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator, loved him. In Tennessee, had viable fantasy seasons.
Yeah.
As a head coach, hated him down in Atlanta. So we'll see. I'm banking on the fact that we're going to get Arthur Smith from Tennessee here. We're going to get a good offensive coordinator. We're going to get somebody who's going to use the middle of the field. We're going to get somebody who's going to get the playmakers his hands and the ball in their hands. I do expect this to be a run-first team, but I do expect predominantly most of the offense to run through George Pickens.
Yeah.
And lastly, the QB upgrade.
Yeah.
Russ. Kenny Pickett, bottom 5 in the league in air yards, PFF passing grade, adjusted completion percentage. You know, he did look good in one area, that being the deep ball. He only threw 30 deep balls, though. So understand that. It was very limited. Russ came in the league last year, 7th in the league in intermediate completion percentage, 10 to 19 yards, 7th. George Pickens is money in that area. Dropped a little bit, came in at 19th, completed about 37% of his deep ball percentages. But you know what? I'll take that. We're going to get a QB upgrade, upgraded offensive line. Finally, I get to see George Pickens featured as a wide receiver 1. And I'm telling everybody now, this is the last time you're going to be able to buy George Pickens as a wide receiver in Dynasty lower than 15.
Yeah, I was going to say 15 is a little. That's high praise. That puts him in the same area as Ayuk, Nico Collins, and Devonta Smith.
Easy. George Pickens is an absolute stud.
I think the quarterback upgrade is not talked about enough. I talked about it a few podcasts ago, but see what you want about Russell Wilson. Mike Tomlin coaches winning football straight up. That's just a proven fact. I think Russell Wilson's definitely better than Kenny Pickett was and ever will be. It's not even close. And the Russell Wilson hate is getting a little bit too much. I'm excited to see what he can do with Pickens. The only thing that I'll ask you is with Arthur Smith coming in as offensive coordinator, do you expect the run game to take a little bit away from the passing game with Arthur Smith there?
Yeah, but I want to say this. I think the passing game is effective. When you looked at Ryan Tannehill's multiple QB1 seasons, you were talking about completion percentages north of 68%. I don't think you have to have an elite passing volume offense to have wide receiver 1 numbers. I don't.
Sure.
I think Russell Wilson can throw the ball, let's say, lower spectrum, 500 to 520 times. It's not elite QB1 numbers like Dak slinging the ball 600 times, Pat Mahomes slinging the ball 600 times, Herbert slinging the ball 600 times. But all it is taking your opportunities and running with them. George Pickens, again, averaged over 18 yards per catch last year. Obviously not a number that we think is sustainable in the NFL. But George Pickens, his yards per catch is going to be north of 14. That's just who he is. He's an explosive playmaker, and he's going to make plays down the field. And you average that.
Yeah.
This will be the highest target share that George Pickens has ever had. I'm hoping to see target numbers north of 100, 125, 130. And as an explosive playmaker with those kind of numbers, there's no way George Pickens can't thrive. George Pickens had 1,140 yards on 66 catches last year.
Yeah. I was going to say he's 100% a guy who can sneakily average, which is a mythical number that I say is not repeatable. But I think Pickens is a guy that can do it, is the 20 yards per catch mark. I think only, off the top of my head, only Ayuk did it last year. I think Pickens was just outside that.
Pickens came in at 18.
18, yeah, just outside. But I think he can push that 20 mark, to be honest with you, because he's, like you said, catch rate is crazy. He's good for a deep ball. Absolutely. He's a beast at the line of scrimmage. I'm excited to see him break out. He's got an actual quarterback now, given not the most elite in the world, but definitely a guy that can get him the ball. Let's let Russ rip.
Yes. And like I said, wide receiver 26. I'm telling you guys now, this is the last time you'll be able to buy him outside at least the top 20.
Yeah.
His value is going to skyrocket.
So going to my next guy, and I'll probably get some comments for this one, which is valid. But my next receiver coming all the way down, and what is going on with my computer? Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Everything froze on my end for a second. I'm so sorry, guys. My bad. I didn't mean to do that. My computer's glitched out. Nonetheless, Rashee Rice is my guy. Wide receiver 33 is way too low. He peaked at wide receiver 16 in season during their playoff run. I think that's where he probably should end up being. Now, if you haven't bought the lowest dip at this point when he was all the way down in the 40s, that's okay. He's still sitting at 33. I'm sure owners are still low on him. And I get he's got a suspension coming, right? I don't expect it to be massive. 2 to 4 games I expect him to get. I'm not worried about that. This is dynasty football we're talking about here. And I think if he can get his head back on his shoulders and just put everything in the past and keep doing what he's doing, with him and Patrick Mahomes, I think he's set for a while. Dude was a dog last year. He was the only consistent receiver. It took him a little bit to get there. I'll give that to you. It took him until the end of the season, but towards the end, I think it was like week 10 or 11 on, he had 4 finishes as wide receiver 1, and he played pretty well in the playoffs as well. Rashee Rice is someone moving forward I'm not too worried about, and we've been talking about separation from the DBs. Rashee Rice was at 2.49 the previous season in separation. That's huge, especially if you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball who will get in that window if given the opportunity. He was Patrick Mahomes' most reliable guy last year. They didn't have anybody but him. It was a down year for Mahomes, and especially with who they added in Hollywood and Worthy, I think Mahomes is going to give back to throwing the close to 5,000 yards, so there'll be another 700 yards to play around with. Rashee Rice is going to eat. You take the suspension, live with it. 4 games is not going to cripple your fantasy season. Trust me. Especially the value you're getting him at, you're probably not going to give up as much as you would next offseason. I'm just in on Rashee Rice. I was trying to buy him when I could. I only bought him in 1 league at the super low dip. But if you can find somebody that's trying to get rid of him, please do so.
So the thing I like to notate with Rashee Rice, QBs, especially elite QBs, usually have their guys. Patrick Mahomes has always been Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. So with the mix of this, Rashee Rice long-term plan here, Travis Kelce's on a 2-year deal that we don't know what's going to happen after that. But especially from week 12 on, where we saw numbers of 10, 9, 10, 9, 12 targets, first playoff game, 12 targets, had 1 dud in the divisional round, but then 9 and 8 targets including in the Super Bowl Conference Championship. He looked to be a major benefactor of what the Kansas City Chiefs wanted to do, whether that's how bad the other wide receivers in the wide receiver room were, or Rashee Rice was just that talented. At wide receiver 33, I'm willing to bank on that. I just bought Rashee Rice at wide receiver 38 prices, so I was very excited for that in that aspect. Yeah. I did buy on the dip. I didn't get him in the 40s like when this whole legal situation first happened. But we've seen a lot of positives from Rashee Rice in his rookie season. And I'm hoping that he builds upon that. Yeah. The wide receiver room does become a little bit more crowded with staple names. Like you said, Hollywood Brown, first round pick wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, now Rashee Rice. But it's a game of trust. It's a game of trust. And long term, Travis Kelce is not part of this plan for Patrick Mahomes. He's not. He's a short-term value. He's a short-term guy. Why not go buy the projected wide receiver 1 in Kansas City?
Right. And I think he is. I mean, I think a lot of people look at their arrival of Hollywood and Worthy as not good things for Rashee, but he's the one that stands out as the true X on the offense, right? Hollywood's kind of been bounced around in the league. He's been here or there. Injuries have definitely hurt him, but he's only had 1 season where he's been a wide receiver 2. Everything else has been outside wide receiver 3. Injuries are a part of that. I'm not going to discredit Hollywood because I like him. But I don't think he's a 1. And I don't think Worthy is either, to be honest with you. I know we saw what Tyreek Hill did with Kansas City. I don't expect Worthy to do that. I just can't. You know what I mean? I think there's only 1 Tyreek Hill. That's it. I'm not saying Worthy won't be successful in this league. I think he's the guy that can definitely push for 1,100 yards. But when you were passing Mahomes, you wait for Kelsey to leave and you buy Rasheed now, it's money after that. You got 2 more years of Kelsey. Call it a year. I mean, you got to imagine the decline's coming at some point. But, I mean, you're kind of already seeing the trust being handed off to Rasheed Rice. He had 22 red zone targets last year, which is absolutely insane. That went for 7th best in the league ahead of Kelsey. So the trust is already there for Rasheed, and I expect, like you said, to grow on that going forward. Yep. I just really hope he can get his head back on his shoulders, just put everything in the past that's happened and play some damn football.
Yep. I think this is a benefactor too. I think Hollywood Brown is a short-term option here on a 1-year deal. May get signed based off of level of play. But realistically, you and I are expecting long-term this to be the Rasheed Rice, Xavier Worthy style offense. And that's who the offense is going to run through long-term for Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes has 8 years left on that 10-year deal.
Yeah.
So
let's be honest. He's a chief for life. Let's just hope
a chief for life.
That Rasheed is probably the same way.
So, great buy. So my last buy comes in at wide receiver 39 in Dynasty football via key trade cut. That being Mr. Cooper Kupp. So the last 2 years, I know it's been off years since we've talked about Cooper Kupp and the Triple Crown. But unfortunately, he wasn't healthy to start the year last year, but it didn't show in any decline in the level of play. I know Puka Nacua emerged. I know Puka Nacua probably is the wide receiver 1 on this team long term. No problem. Not arguing that. But last year, and even though he had some down weeks, he still averaged almost 7.92 targets per game. That coming out to be over a 17-game stretch, that's 135 targets. That's wide receiver 1 numbers. Just for reference, A.J. Brown never received that kind of volume in Tennessee. Not once. Just saying, just for reference, just want to throw something out there.
Yeah.
It's a high-level quality number of targets here. He is Matt Stafford's guy. They've been long-term together. They've won a Super Bowl together. He is his right-hand man here. I know Puka has blossomed into this star. That's great. Last year, 4 games of 10-plus targets. That doesn't include multiple games of 9 or 8 targets that he had. 400-yard games. 25% of his games went for 100 yards or more. 5 touchdowns in the span. So he's behind guys like Ricky Pearsall, Scary Terry, Christian Kirk. You know, I know we've seen Christian Kirk finish as a wide receiver, as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 last year. Fantasy points per game put him as a wide receiver 2 last year. Ricky Pearsall, we've never seen take a single snap in the NFL. Scary Terry, yeah, we've seen him have wide receiver 1 volume, who was very much hindered by terrible QB play. But for what I'm saying this, Matt Stafford has 2 years left on his Rams contract. Cooper Kupp has 2 years left. Ride off in the sunset with this man. This man is a hell of a value at wide receiver 39. And even though he may not be getting you 2021 Cooper Kupp numbers,
I don't think we see that again.
You'll never see it again. But you're still, if he plays 17 games, 134 targets, you're going to still see a 1,300-yard receiving season for Cooper Kupp. Who knows what the touchdown numbers are? Those are wacky and wonky year in and year out. But you're still going to see a high-level, high-volume guy with upside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit everything on the head with him. And like you said, for us for 39, I know he's older, definitely older. I wouldn't advise you to buy Cooper Kupp. At least I wouldn't if you're in a rebuild, right? Probably not ready to own him. But he's probably the guy. We talked about Derrick Henry being the guy to buy if you're trying to contend for a championship at the running back position. I think it's Cooper Kupp for the receiving position with the upside that he has with Matt Stafford. I'm pumped. I can't understand the value, but like me and Steve said, past couple weeks, vets are given unbelievable discounts. Like Steve said, no matter what, it doesn't matter what happens. Unless they cancel NFL season, God forbid that, he's still playing 2 more years with Matt Stafford. Just Traded for him at the low. Like Steve said, ride that thing out, baby.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Ricky Pearsall being a late second-round pick, if you're in that range, you might be competing unless you're trading into picks and getting a guy like that. So I'm going to let him go, man. I'm going to let him go. I'm going to go get Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ball out. See, the names like that, and they stick out. Kupp, Adams, Evans.
Diggs.
See, Diggs isn't even in my buy list. We're zooming past Diggs.
We're moving past Diggs.
We're talking about 3 legit wide receiver ones. I don't know what Diggs is. Diggs way too crowded for me. I'm good.
It's fair.
Evans, Diggs, Adams.
Kupp, Adams.
Yeah. Kupp needs to buy more coffee. Hey, I'm just going to tell you now, Cooper Kupp and him are going to breakfast every day. Every day they're going to breakfast this season, baby. Bring it back. Bring back the love.
Bring back the love.
Yeah. Bring back the love. So, yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, we're past Diggs. You can keep Diggs. Let him die.
Just let that guy die off. Yeah. You're right. Diggs, I think, is probably the time to sell him was when he signed there. It's kind of already fallen off now, but
yeah, those 3 guys though, I will never understand the hatred towards those 3 guys. Adams, Evans, Cooper Kupp. They're money.
Throw Amari Cooper on that list too.
I do throw Amari Cooper on that list. Yeah. I really do. But those 3 guys specifically stand out to me as low end, as like high, like 30, 35, 30, 40 in that range. We're talking about multiple wide receiver 1 seasons. We're talking about consistent studs. Evans and Adams are Hall of Fame wide receivers. Kupp, unfortunately, is not that. But you know what I mean? Like we're talking about guys that have the ability and have finished as wide receiver 1s overall multiple years in their career. Why not?
Yeah. Why not? Preach.
So,
all right, Steve. That being said, anything else before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, first off, shout out to Alex. Have you guys noticed the new header and the new layout for the yards per Delaware Dynasty Boys podcast? It is a beautiful, beautiful overall layout. So, Alex, we appreciate you very much. So, we will be back Friday night. We have a Scott Fish Bowl mock draft. Yes, Ryan and I are both going to be participating in the Scott Fish again, Scott Fish 14. Very excited. So, thank you. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ryan McDowell. Thank you, Fantasy Cares Organization.
Yep.
Thank you,
Jason.
Jason in the SSB Hopefuls chat. We appreciate you. Ryan, I'm playing in the Michael Myers division, the Halloween division. Where will you be joining?
I'm sitting in the 11th spot in the Dumbledore division. Same with Alex, who I hope is hopefully going to be joining us for our Scott Fish mock. We'll see. But I'm excited for the Scott Fish mock, man. I want to get some people in there, see where people's heads are at, see what's going on. I'm pumped for it.
Yep, I am currently in the 2-hole in the Michael Myers division. Very excited. Gonna be a lot of fun, guys. So, like I said, we'll see you guys on Friday night. Other than that, it was good to be back. I know it's been a little over a week now. Things have been busy. Had to celebrate Father's Day yesterday for my long work week. So we appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you on Friday night. And on that note, we are